Hello, everyone. I'm Renee the practical shaman, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave.
And today we're starting off with infomercials, which we don't usually do, but both Sandra and I have some really exciting news. And so I'll share mine first because I've been working on this project for 10 years, and I'm very, very excited that this week the Windwalker's Wisdom Oracle arrived, and it comes complete with a 120 some page book and 64 Winds of Spirit cards. And what's really exciting for me about this whole deck is that the that 32 new winds showed up, and I'm very, very excited about that. And some of these wins that showed up were so prominent that I'm not sure why they didn't show up in my first 5 or 6 years of research, but they showed up now. And I really believe that's because there's more and more of the community holding the wind work and understanding the power of the winds. Like yesterday, a friend of mine pulled one of the new winds, which was the downdraft wind. And she called me last night to tell me, Renee, as soon as I went to the Apple store, I was telling them that I wasn't all that thrilled with the amount of RAM in my new computer, and without even anything, they upgraded my computer to double the RAM and double the capacity. And talk about getting a downdraft and an experience of the wind happening so quickly. That's what I love about the wind. It's not about advice, it's about working with these energies of nature. Sandra, you want to tell about your upcoming event?
Yeah, so as you know, most of you know, I teach online for the Shift Network. I prefer to teach in person. That's more of what I like to do. But in the world that we're living in today, a lot of people can only do online classes. So I'm teaching an online class that I've never taught online before, and it's a course on death as a rite of passage and how we can work with it using shamanic methods. And so it's a modified course because I can't teach psychopomp how to cross souls over, on the internet with people I don't know. I am into, big ethics and teaching, and that's a big issue that's going on in the shamanic world out there right now. And so this is a course that I've taught for many, many years. I've been teaching it for over 40 years now, so it's a long time. And I've taught it to hospice workers, to people who are interested in learning about death themselves, how to sit with loved ones and how to help them as they're dying, how to finish unfinished business with people who have died, ancestors, pets that you love, being able to see who you love again. A lot of work around helping people have a graceful way out. And so there are some really good shamanic methods that we work with, and we do work with transfiguration. And anyway, it's a beautiful, beautiful course. It's going to be 7 weeks. When I used to teach it in person, I always got letters from people at some point saying, I never knew why I signed up for this course, but now I do. And so it's just a course that you can really use at over time, and we really look at memorials and grief rituals and help from ancestors and descendants. It's just a beautiful course, really talking about the flow of how we're sung into the world and how we're sung out of the world by the spirits, and how we can understand death for ourselves, lose fear of it for ourselves, finish up unfinished business, and help loved ones and clients who are facing death. So I'm doing an intro call and we'll post the information on the Shaman's Cave accounts, social media accounts, and also on an email coming out. So you can sign up for the free intro call and learn more. The course will take place in January.
Sounds wonderful. I think there's a lot of interest in that kind of subject right now, and a lot of people making transitions and leaving the planet. So I think you should do really well with that. The So we're not usually shameless promoters, but today we are promoting, and we're not shameless because we both believe in a lot in what we're teaching and what we're doing. And today we have a really interesting topic for you. And since Sandra's the therapist in the group, I work in behavioral health, but she's, more directly licensed. I thought she could introduce what the questions were and what the topic is about.
Yeah, so we got an interesting uh, question, a topic from a woman who is a therapist and is for the first time, looking at integrating shamanic healing into her practice. And so she has questions about the ethics about doing this, and she has questions about the legalities of doing this. And of course, everybody in the world right now wants to know, is it evidence based? Research has been done. So I love to talk about the evidence-based part first because I find it incredibly funny because I'm constantly being contacted by researchers who wanna do research. I did do a randomized research study that is written up in a medical journal, and I have to say it took something like 10 years for it to be published. In the meantime, thousands of people were healed by the work before the research study came out. So I have a big, big issue with the whole evidence-based thing. That shamanism dates back over 100,000 years. And the fact that it's still the only practice that survived that long, isn't that evidence-based?
That's so funny. When I wrote the book Wins the Spirit, I was working at an addiction treatment center, and the CEO used to say he used to love to have conversations with me about where I was going with the work and, what books he thought I should write next. But he wouldn't let me bring the work into the treatment center because it was not evidence based. And my answer to him was, well, let's get some evidence. And for me, the evidence came, there's lots of evidence. And so about a month ago, one of my friends who's back working at the treatment center said she walked into a client's room and there they were reading my book and said how much how helpful it was for them. And it's probably some clinician who picked it up at my open book night or whatever, got it and probably didn't have any interest in it and left it there. But the client picked it up, the client's reading it, and the client's finding hope. And to me, that is the evidence for me that it works. Not to mention, many, many other stories that in my own life, I believe that a psychic told me in my 20s I'd have a major illness in my 40s. And instead, I had a psychic surgery while I was listening to Hank Wesselman, and they pulled out this big black mass out of me, sewed me shut with arrows, and I never had any illnesses, knock on wood, well, I'm way past my 40s. But if that was, I believe that might have been in the ethers, but it was removed from the ethers before it ever manifested physically. So if you're waiting for the evidence, you just might get, the blister on your toe instead of taking care of it before it even hits your foot.
Yeah, absolutely. I I actually won't get involved with the research study right now. I've had, Zoom meetings with a few researchers in this last year, and I keep throwing back questions at them. So I've been doing this work for 40 years and getting these results. And you first are starting to do some fundraising that's going to take you 5 years. And then you want me to help you find good practitioners to work with. And then it's a few more years to get the study approved. And meanwhile, we've been doing the work for 40 years and we already know the results. So I'm really turning down working with researchers right now. So that's what I have to say about that. On the other side of that, I really understand the issue right now of ethics,
Mhm.
of everybody's calling themselves a shaman. And I don't give out certifications because the spirits certify you.
Mhm.
I can't certify anybody. But people are signing up for all these courses that are being taught by people who don't have a lot of experience under their belt, but they give out certifications, and it's certification to do what, and what does it mean?
Mhm.
So I understand that part where, we didn't have this in the past. We're seeing it more now, where we're living in a time where a lot of people are just, "What can I get for myself? What can I get for myself?" Instead of really looking at, um, "How do I tap into my true creative potential and work from an ethical place?" And really share the gifts that I have in the world. And so a lot of people right now are finding themselves in shamanic programs with teachers who really don't know what they're doing and don't know what they're teaching. They read a book. And so it is an issue that I really don't have a solution for except check out the level of experience of a practitioner and a teacher before you sign up with them. Don't just sign up because their class is cheap or because they give a certification certificate. Find out who they are because it is an ethical issue right now. You know, I, I I basically have worked a lot with the spirits around this, and, I think that, uh, I think that shamanism has been a fad, but I think the fad is ending. Um, Meditation will always keep going on, yoga is always gonna keep going on. Shamanism is really gonna start being like it was back in the days when I was teaching and practicing, where the people who are feeling really called to do the work, come in. We're starting to lose the spiritual surfers a bit
Hmm.
and getting a little bit more, people who are wanna commit themselves to the practice. Are you saying that at all, Renee?
Yeah, well, I did I did that year-long apprenticeship, and I did it twice. And I was always amazed at the end of it, like, the students would say, "Oh, well, I need to go take a course in shamanism now." And it's really, my direct revelations are coming from the wind, and they really have set up, like, some guidelines about how many people we need to hold. Like I just said, we just got 32 more winds that we can work with because we didn't have enough people to hold the energy, and so, like, I was really surprised that, like, what do you mean you need to go take a course in shaman shamanism? Because you and I both know that shamanism is direct revelation, and the winds just happen to be the teachers who are teaching me. And trust me, they hold me a lot more accountable than any 2-year program I ever took. Like, in my integrity and in my walk and in how I bring out the information and in their timing. You know, I was the reason that I have the title, the practical shaman, because I was a marketer first. And I got the word the practical shaman way long when it was cool to get the domain name, but realized over the years that practical and shaman meant the same thing. That if you're not caring about your community and you're not caring about the livestock and you're not caring about, the health and longevity of people, what is more practical than your food sources or the air you're breathing? And and I say that I say, I never changed the name, but I could. But the thing is that now I've owned that domain for so long. But the thing I keep seeing, I was just at a retreat, and there, like you said, there's a lot of people. Oh, I'm doing this shamanic work, and I'm doing that shamanic work, and we're taking people to Peru, and I don't know their integrity or their level of experience. I sit here with Sandra, I think we're what, in year 6 now, because we know each other's integrity. We watch each other walk through the slush and the dirt and the mud and the green grasses together, and that's the test of who you wanna study with. You wanna see if somebody's living their life in true authenticity. Somebody asked me about a program, and I'm there like, "Well, I think you need to look into that program yourself. I'm not the person to tell you whether or not that's the right program for you, but I could tell you that I wanna know who the teachers are. How are their relationships with their partners and their family and their other loved ones? So many so many shamanic teachers were sleeping with their students. Yeah, that's just not okay. I don't care how you slice it, that's just not okay. And because it's a sacred bond. You make a sacred bond with a teacher. And you want to just like and we could slip back into the therapy, just like that sacred bond you make with a client, you make that sacred, agreement, and you have to make sure that you really hold it that way, otherwise, you can do way more harm than good.
Absolutely. The whole sexual thing is crazy, and it's just not shamanism, it's meditation, it's yoga, it's everything. It's all in the spiritual community. And back when I first, started studying, one of my teachers was, Oshana, who was an Apache medicine woman, and I studied crystal healing with her. And Oshana, she ran with, the Grateful Dead and Rolling Thunder. She was unbelievable, unbelievable. Anyway, Oshana would call out every teacher who was sleeping with their students and would say in her classes, "Do not sleep with these teachers. You don't sleep with, um, a shaman. You don't sleep with a shaman." And she would actually call out teachers. So I was her student, so I started doing the same thing. So in every single workshop, if you took a beginning 2-day workshop with me, you had to hear my lecture on do not sleep with a shaman, your shamanic teachers or your shamanic healers. And I would call out some of the worst. There were some really, really bad ones out there back in that day. And so we did have to educate. We did have to educate women, just like we have to educate clients now on what so many women and men don't know appropriate boundaries. S- They get really lost around authority figures and what their boundaries are. And so, going back to the therapy question, as Renee was talking about, it's a sacred space in therapy. And so, we really haven't had this issue come up. I haven't heard of it in the shamanic world. The two things I have heard of, and one of them was so long ago, we're going back probably 30 years. Um, it was nobody who, it was whoever this person was, we actually don't know who she trained with. We investigated as much as possible to find out, and luckily, we don't know whoever she trained with. But she was a psychiatrist in LA, and she did an extraction on a client, and she told her client she extracted a rat out of her back. And if you study with a good shamanic teacher who teaches in the Western world, we teach you never share what you took out of your client's body because it's psychologically damaging to
Mhm,
a culture that wasn't trained in shamanism.
mhm.
And the intrusions show themselves in a way that alerts the shaman to danger. So if 10 shamans are looking at a person, we're all going to see a different intrusion. So the client sued the psychiatrist and she won the case. And it was in every national paper. And that's how I found out about it. It was a little article in the Santa Fe New Mexican. And, it was in every national paper in the country, but that was years ago. And so if you know what you're doing and you've trained well to understand not shamanic healing, but how to bridge shamanic healing into a Western modern culture, like Renee talks about being the practical shaman, we don't we're not working on South American clients. We're not working on Siberian clients. We're working with people in our culture that don't understand. And so you wanna work with people who trained in how to actually integrate shamanism into a modern day culture using the right words when you do a soul retrieval, when you do an extraction, when you do a depossession, so that you're working within the culture so that everything is understood by the client.
Absolutely. And you brought up another good point is that I didn't get those tools in my training. I didn't, all of a sudden I got tossed into I was working at We Care Spa and I was working with like really high end clients. And it does not whether you're working with high end clients or, the average Joe. And so I mean I was going in and out of Hollywood homes and yet I hadn't gotten all the integrity training that went along with that, like, how do you keep those boundaries and how do some of those you have to make sure that your shamanic training program has that, the boundaries and the ethics and all of that, because I think a lot of times, besides for learning the soul retrieval, what do you do with it when my teacher that I worked with after my 2-year training program said to me, Renee, you might need to go get your psychology degree or your clinical degree because you tend to, because of the way I work, I tend to go in deep to the the psychology of things. That's just the way I see the world, maybe because of my brokenness or what I've healed in my life. But she said, you really dance on a fine line between a therapist and a shamanic practitioner and you have more training in one than the other. And she woke me up to the idea that, like, I really had to learn how to speak better to my clients than I just did on an average day because I'd say things and I could go in for the jugular vein and it would be not useful.
Yeah. Yeah, I teach 5-day soul retrieval workshops for a lot of reasons, because I don't believe in just doing a one-time soul retrieval,
Mhm,
in helping people integrate it and how to let go of the past and what you're moving towards in the future, doing ceremonies to let go of the old hurts and bringing in what you want to do, and really helping people let go of the past, but helping people look at what they're creating, what their
mhm.
life is going to be, which is, I think, really important. But the other reason I teach 5-day soul retrieval workshops is I have 5 days where I can keep pounding information about telling healing stories and how to talk to clients. I have 5 days to do it because you missed what I said on Monday. You missed what I said on Tuesday. I said it 10 times again on Wednesday, and you heard it once on Wednesday, so I know you got it once. Then I can do it on Thursday. I mean, you're getting the point. I have to say it so many times because in our culture, people get so excited about the journeys they do for clients. They just open up their mouths and start talking, and they forget that there's an actual human being in the world. And so, just like the Navajo teach, you can bless a client with your words, or you can curse a client with your words. And so, most of my soul retrieval trainings are about how to bless your clients so that they have
Mhm.
a good life. Where, in with people who haven't been don't have the common sense. It's really a common sense. It's not whether you're a therapist, because therapists have actually been the worst in my workshops because it's their time to act out when they
Yeah.
take care of all these people. So now they come to my workshop and I'm going to act out like a client. And so I haven't found that people being therapists have been useful in my workshops personally, but therapy does help. And if I wasn't a licensed therapist, and if I didn't have my master's in counseling psychology, Harvard, San Francisco was quite honest with me. They never would have published Soul Retrieval. It gives you a trust,
Mhm.
through a particular program. But going back to the legalities for this person who was asking, um, so you never want to say to a client, I think you need a shamanic healing,
Mhm.
and leave articles around your office if you see people in person. This is what I train people to do, and they read an article and they say, "Wow, this is really interesting." And then you say, "Oh, you're interested in this. I can tell you more." So you let the client ask you instead of you telling the client what they need. That's very important in the legal world of combining shamanism and psychotherapy. Most states in the US have no issues with it. There are a few states in the East Coast, so you have to find out the laws in your state if you are a therapist. And you need to also say or have clients sign that shamanism is not physical or it's not physical healing, it's not medicine, it's not psychotherapy, it is spiritual healing. And we don't know the results that you're going to get on an emotional or physical level. So you just let people know what shamanic healing is. It's not medicine, it's not psychotherapy. And then the last one is if you do refer, say, uh, you want to refer to another shamanic practitioner because you don't feel comfortable yourself, you must refer to at least 3 people to keep yourself safe. And the reason for that, I'm sorry I have to talk about legalities, but
No, I love this.
this is the world we live in. A literary lawyer taught me all these things to protect myself when I first started. Um, if you give 3 names to refer to, the person picked by their choice. If you give 1 name, you told them who to go to, and then they can come back to you and say, I got hurt by this person, and this is your fault. But if you gave them choices, they can't do that. They picked. They were the ones who picked. Um, so we've actually, I've said this on many shows before. besides the psychiatrist who got sued for, telling her client that she extracted a rat out of her, client's back, and, uh, this wasn't shamanism, but there was a case in hypnotherapy where a hypnotherapist, helped a client see that she was abused. The family, sued the hypnotherapist and won. That means a precedent has been set, and so what I train my students is that, because I believe it's ethical also, is you do not tell a person they've been abused.
Mm.
That's the memory has to come up for them. That's not something you tell somebody. And so there is a precedent about that if a family did sue and won. So that's again where the healing stories come in. And so that's where you have to, yes, direct revelation is wonderful. My spirits taught me how to do all this work, but it was myself and my students who, for 20, 30 years, kept getting into trouble with modern day clients that we joined together as a community to figure out how to bridge shamanism into a modern day world in a psychologically sophisticated culture. And unfortunately, I haven't found that the spirits are always helpful with that. They give you the shamanic work, uh, all of that. But it's up to you as a human to be conscious and compassionate enough to know how to speak to people and know how your words are gonna fit into their heart.
Mhm. As you speak, and I just wanna say this to the people out there who've made the mistakes, because I made all the ones she's talking about, I made, and 'cause I think I got visions long before I had sense. And, the sense came with really making some mistakes. And so if you've made those mistakes, don't beat yourself up, but learn from them. And, I had to learn from them in some very hard lessons over my life because I was either not paying attention and not getting it for 5 days, "Renee, don't do this," or it just was, like, glossed over and I couldn't hear it at the time. Because for me, the truth always comes that I become a better healer, a better shamanic practitioner, the more that I've healed my own personal wounding, because a lot of times the people who come to you are facing the same kind of wounding that you've had in your life, because that's the Velcro. And so that you have to learn that part. And there's so definitely what you're saying. And I do have to say that I had I had several powerful soul retrievals in my life, but one of the most powerful ones was from somebody who learned from you. And it was the story that they told me afterwards. It was the note that I put on my mirror to keep reminding me that the change had taken place. Then, that was probably the most powerful and impactful one that I experienced. Not to say the other ones weren't life changing, but that was like the most memorable. Wow, that would be a much nicer way to do this.
Yeah, I tried, um, like Renee, we're all doing the best we can. We all got some form of abuse. It's just what humans do. Um,
Mhm.
Unfortunately, what's been passed down through our ancestry to our parents and all of that. And so we're working with a really sensitive culture that
Mhm.
I believe other shamanic cultures really don't know how to work with. They do, and some people get extraordinary healing. But to be able to work with somebody in this culture who's trained in shamanism, but is also trained in how to work within this culture, whether the training is becoming a therapist, whether the training is learning how to speak, reading a book on healing stories, and What I try to do is ask my clients, not, my well, we don't speak right away after the soul retrieval, but once the story happens, to really, imagine first that you're the client.
Mhm.
And what would these words feel like to you? Because the reason I started bringing healing stories in was because we don't need more bad news. People in our culture don't know why they should wake up the next day. You go for shamanic healing and they start going into this curse and this thing and you did this and you were abused and this happened to you and all this stuff. And now you really don't know why you should wake. So what I try to train people is that we don't know why we should wake up. People need to hear the beauty in you, the gifts in you, the strengths in you that you lost throughout the years
Mm,
because of what you went through, and you got them back. And so
mhm.
this is what you have to look forward to. In our culture, we need to know what to look forward to. We don't know.
That really I think that's probably a good stopping point because I think it's so profound and so beautiful. And just I want to finish on one thing is that what you were talking about is that like you may want to go to a Western shaman for, Western healing. Like I had some beautiful healings when I was in Peru. Like the one night, the woman who does the soul retrieval in Peru, she came in my bed and tucked me in and took a piece of my clothing, but I had no relationship to whatever happened afterwards. Like, that wasn't my story, that wasn't how so that might be how that worked for them. So even if something really beautiful happened afterwards, I still don't have an inkling of what did go on other than, "Wow, that's a really beautiful practice. I would love to incorporate that into, the way that I teach something."
Right. Yeah.
That's a really good point. I think that was a really valid point.
Yeah, we both made really valid points, and it's a deep subject.
Mhm,
So it is definitely time to end, but it is a deep subject, and we hope that we planted seeds for you to think about whether you're looking for a shamanic practitioner, whether you want to become a shamanic practitioner, whether you're a therapist who wants to bring shamanism into your practice. We have, there's, oh my God, I can't tell you how many practitioners around the world who are therapists who have been bringing this into their practice almost as long as I have. And
mhm,
had no problems, no problems. On the legal side of things, of course, you're not going to get 100% of clients happy, but that's been every tradition, and it doesn't matter where you are. So it is a great thing to integrate. And so I hope those of you who are therapists will look at creative ways, whether some shamanic practitioners split their practice and they see
mhm.
uh, their shamanic clients on a separate day. Be creative, journey on it, talk to others, and talk about it on. We have the Shamans Cape podcast Facebook page and Instagram. Talk about it. We're happy
Mhm.
to discuss these things.
Yeah, I'll start a thread on this and so that people can really put their practices in their not their practices, but what they've done in their practices to make this a better flowing thing. Well, you know where we are, the Shaman's Cave, shamanstv.com. Like us. If you don't, we're not doing videos anymore. So, you can go straight over to any of where you listen to your podcasts. And but both Sandra and I are on the wall, and I notice we comment when we think people are coming from their heart and things of value. And that's the things we like to talk to you about as well. So we'll see you really again soon.
Blessings, everyone. Have a beautiful day or night.